Hey everybody, Carla with, and then 6 pipe cleaners on the inner 2 rings. On the base, we're using the Cruffle method, and I'm using this really shiny red Deco mesh. I got this at bbcrafts.com. If anybody wants to get some of that, I think it's around $4 or less for a 10-yard roll, so it's a really good value. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and add the couple pieces here. Let me see if I can get my comments in. All right, while we wait for that page to load, we'll go ahead and do this Cruffle. Just lay out our pieces of mesh are cut 16 to 17 inches. Just fold it over and roll 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. Turn the 2 curls face down. Cruffle down the middle. Pinch between your fingers and it should look like a bow. We're going to place that in to our, I've got 2 pipe cleaners left here to show you how I did the mesh around the base. We're going to put the finished edges to the inside and the outside. Now when we put this piece in, we're going to have to, I already had those ribbons attached there, so I'm going to fix this and make sure that I have my mesh all laying the same way as every piece I laid in and pull my ribbons up. And now we have one more here to do, and I'll show you how to do this when you get to your last piece on the bottom row. One more time, we're going to curl on each end. To do that, we're going to fold over 1, 2, 3, 4. Making sure our cut edge of the mesh is rolled in real good so that it prevents fraying. So 1, use your pinkies to hold down these outer edges so they curl under as well. 2, 3, 4. Turn your curls face down and just scrunch small sections at a time down the middle, pulling the mesh towards you. Pinch the 2 sides together and take off your clip. Finished edge to the inside and outside again on this bottom row. And then when we place in that last piece, I forgot to say what I was doing, but let me do that now. Make sure the piece of mesh to the right, you pull it out from under and lay it on top of the last piece that you put in. This way, all of your mesh is overlapping the same way all the way around. Okay, and now for the ribbon tails around our bottom layer, I have selected, I had 2 different watermelon patterns available, so we're going to use this one to go with our watermelon slice. It goes well, it's got the light green and dark green, the same as our sign, and then the alternating patterns here match real well with the alternating patterns around the bottom. And then we have this watermelon print. It has half watermelon slices and seeds like scattered throughout. And then I paired up with those a solid red. And then I also went with this red and white plaid. This kind of watermelon reminds me of summertime picnics. And so this kind of reminded me of the famous picnic tablecloths everybody uses. And so that's why I chose this pattern to go with it. And it stuck with our 3, I've mentioned before I try to stick with a color scheme of 3 colors. And in this case we're doing the red, the green, and the white. And so all of those ribbons stay within our collar pattern. Okay, now when you cut this, you're going to need, I did 6-inch pieces of the 2 design ribbons this time. Normally, if you've watched my other videos, I usually do that with my solid and other pattern, not my 2 primary ribbons. When I designed this wreath, at the end of last summer season, I was running short on watermelon ribbon, and I did not want to order more at the very end of the season. So I instead, to make my ribbon go further and to be able to get 2 wreaths out of what I had left, I did 6-inch pieces around the base of the bottom of the watermelon print, and then I did 12-inch pieces to coordinate with it of our red and white plaid and our red solid. All of these are 2.5-inch ribbons, except for the solid red is a 1.5. You could use 2.5 all the way around. That would look just as good. Okay, so now I'll show you how I place these in here. I just alternate every other one with the 6-inch pieces. So I did a 6-inch of this watermelon pattern, so this one will be next. Also, on my ribbon tails, when I do a 6-inch piece, I dovetail only one end, leave this end straight. This is the end we're going to scrunch to place in the pipe cleaner. To dovetail your ribbons, you just fold them in half. Take your scissors. You're going to cut from the folded side up at an angle to the wired side or the open side. So you just clip, and then when you open it up, you have a nice little V pattern. Okay, so we're going to scrunch this one on the straight edge. And again, these are cut to 6 inches. And so we're just going to place that in there with the ribbon tail, the 6-inch ribbon tail coming straight out the middle of the piece of mesh we're placing it over. Just fluff that out. So it'll look kind of like that. It's just coming straight out that middle piece. And then we are going to pair this solid red with that one. And so these are 12-inch pieces, dovetailed on both ends. Scrunch down the middle, V that back towards yourself so that your 2 ends are pretty much even. Should look like that. And then you're going to place that V pattern over top of the watermelon ribbon you just added. That way you will see both ends of the red ribbon we just placed in and still see your watermelon pattern. The ribbons won't cover each other up that way. And like right here, if you can't see it very well and you want that to be more prominent, just pull it up, move your ribbons around so that they show the way you want. Now we're not going to add anything else into this pipe cleaner, so put that off, tuck the extra little piece down inside, squeeze it to secure your ribbon. And now we are going to put in this one because we just did the red and green on one side, red on the other side, so we're going to alternate those all the way around, alternate those 6-inch pieces. Squeeze them real tight when you're putting them in the pipe cleaner because you want them to be secure. Fluff that one out. Now over top of this print, I chose to do our red and white plaid. Same thing, scrunch down the middle, V it back towards you so that your ends right in front of you line up and are even. Pick up your V and place it right in the pipe cleaner so that it lays on either side of your watermelon print ribbon. 3 or 4 twists of the pipe cleaner, and then clip it off, push it down in. Fluff out your ribbon tails. Get them all laying the way you want. And then you just do that all the way around. Now when you're doing these, you're only working on those 12 pipe cleaners on the outer 2 rings. And so now that we have that filled in with our layer mesh, we've gone over top of that with this ribbon pattern that I just showed you, just alternating the pattern that I explained all the way around. Let me check one more time here and see if I can get my comments up. Okay. Now we're going to work on these inside 6 pipe cleaners that are on the inner 2 rings. To do that, we want to keep building our wreath up around the outside. So we're going to reach between the mesh and pull these pipe cleaners to the outside now so that we can add to those. Okay, we'll just go all the way around. We have 6 of them, so we want to make sure we get all 6 pulled out. Hey Ida, thank you. Okay. Now we're going to use this lime green metallic mesh. The red mesh I think I mentioned, but just in case, came from BB Crafts. The 2 watermelon patterns came from Amazon. And then the solid red and the red and white check came from Craft Outlet. So that's where you can get these ribbons if you're interested. This metallic mesh also came from Craft Outlet. I believe this pattern is called Window Pane. And this is what it looks like when it's unfolded. It's very shiny and very pretty. So we're going to do these. These are also 16 to 17 inches long. Hi Aunt Pay. Yes, summer. I can't wait for it to actually be here. This kind of puts me there for a little while anyway. Okay, we're going to curl the end, hold it 1, holding the ends down with our pinkies. 2, 3, 4. Take your clip, clothespin, or whatever you want to use, and hold that curl in place. I'm going to do the other end, same exact thing. Then we're going to turn our 2 curls down and scrunch down the middle, small sections at a time to give us that ruffled effect. And then you should have what looks like a bow. Now on the bottom row, we put the finished edges to the inside and outside. As I commonly do on this one, we're going to turn that and put the finished edges to the right and the left. So it'll look like we're adding little bows all the way around our wreath design. When you add these, don't squeeze too tight. You don't want to sink your pretty green mesh all the way and get it lost under the mesh and ribbon that's underneath of there. And then just get your bow laying the way you want it to, and you're ready to do the next one. Hey honey, thank you for watching again. Hi Laura, how are you? Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your all support. Okay, and we're just going to do this again 6 times all the way around those 6 pipe cleaners we just pulled out. This is a thinner mesh, this window pane, but it really packs a punch. It adds a lot of beautiful color and detail and texture to our wreath. And then it does have like a see-through quality, which may be why it's called window pane, and allows some of the bottom layers that you added to show through more than some of the more solid meshes. Okay. And then as usual, I like to line up the edges of my bows so they're kind of just resting on each other. All mesh that you use will fray. That is why you will see me frequently use the Cruffle method, because I can tuck in those cut edges and that reduces the amount of fraying that you will have on your finished design. Then scrunch again down the middle, pinch the 2 sides together, take off your clip. Got a little bow. When you're putting your bows in your pipe cleaners, try to center them so you have an equal amount of mesh on each side. Other end, same way, just adding a curl at each end. and then turning it over and ruffling in the middle. Curl plus ruffle equals cruffle. That's why these are called Cruffle, or the Cruffle method. Okay. Make sure it's laying pretty the way I like, lined up with the others. You can pull it around, reshape it. 2 more of these to go. If anybody has any questions for me or anything I didn't cover, leave them in the comments or send me a message. That includes both if you're watching live or if you're watching on a replay on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube. I try to check both of those. I try to make sure I do it daily. If I forget, it might be every other day, but I'm really trying to make it a daily thing. It's just a lot of adjustment for me learning how to use all these new apps and programs, and so might be a little slow in the beginning, but I'm sure I'll get faster as my learning curve gets smaller. Okay, our last one. See that green gives a nice blast of color on top of all of those reds. And then our watermelon sign that we're using has shimmery red in it, so the shimmer in the green I think goes very nicely with that. We're going to add a bow to the wreath this time. Unfortunately, I had designed this wreath like I said, the end of the season last summer, and when I did so, I had gone ahead and cut up my materials to make the second one. In the event that it sold in my Etsy shop, it would be ready for me to assemble and ship out. So I had also already made the bow. So I'm not going to be able to do that on the live. If anybody wants to see how I made this bow, you let me know in the comments, and I'll do a separate video on just how to make the bow. But I basically use the red and white check first in my Easy Bow Maker. As I can show you, that is what I use. It's easier for me to use this to hold my ribbon and measure on each side the size of my loops and my tails. And I can tell you real quick, I did my tails at about 5 inches, and my bottom loops they're about 4 inches. And so I did 4 loops, 2 tails of the red and white plaid first, and then I did 4 loops at 4 inches. And then I came in and I did the solid red and the black, or I did the solid red first. I did 1 loop on each side and 1 tail. When I did that loop, I came in about 1.5 inches. About 1/2 inch. So this was 4 inches. The red is probably about 3.5. Then I came in, and on top of the red, I put the black and white polka dot just for a pop of color. I added that in, even though we don't have that around our wreath. It does match with our seeds in our sign and adds some texture and more design because we got the polka dot. I did the polka dot the exact same size as I did the red loop. And then I came in on top of that, and I just did the like a regular watermelon bow in the middle with this ribbon pattern. Okay, and then once you get it all together, you just separate your loops out until you get them the way you want them to look. I didn't want all my tails going in one direction, so I pulled one up this way and one down this way to spread out the collar. The only ones I did do in the same direction is when I get this on the wreath, I'm going to have the watermelons both probably coming down, maybe. And then I did a red one over this way and a red one over this way, red and white this way, red and white this way. Instead of having them all come down one way, they'll spread out nicely over my wreath. So, and then I've tied it all together with a pipe cleaner. Oh, guys, I skipped a whole step. We got to add the ribbon tails on top before we put the bow on. So we have these ribbons, the same ones we used around the bottom, each cut to 12 inches and dovetailed on both ends. We'll match our patterns the same way we did around the bottom. So that means we'll do the solid red with this one. To add them to the top, we make an X, and then you're going to just scrunch right down the middle of the X, pinch the two sides together, and hold it in your hand just like that, and then place it straight down into your pipe cleaner. Give it 3 or 4 good twists, cut off the extra pipe cleaner, and push that down in. Fluff out your ribbon tails so they lay the way you want them to. I usually push up next to the pipe cleaner here to give it like an arch and then curl the ends out. When you first put them on, your ribbons are, may it turn around, they're sunk in. And so I always just come in right next to the pipe cleaner there and push them out. That's what I mean when I say fluffing out. And then I just kind of curl the ends a little bit so that it lays nicely around the mesh. So next we'll do the red and white with the other watermelon pattern. And it's the same process all the way around. Make an X, scrunch down the middle, hold it in between your two fingers and place it straight in. 3 or 4 good twists, clip it off, and we're going to go around these 6 pipe cleaners on the top that we're working with now, rotating this pattern. So our next one, we'll do this pattern. This watermelon and a solid red. Scrunch down the middle. Touch it together to make an X. Ribbon making video, please. Yes, Sandpeg, I will gladly do that. I'll put together, maybe do a tutorial of several different types of bows. 2, 3, 4. Okay. If you want to make bows, I highly recommend this Easy Bow Maker. Maybe when I do that video, I'll also talk about, because they have a couple different options. They have one called the Bowdabra, and then this Easy Bow Maker, and then lots of people do them by hand. Maybe I'll attempt a hand bow, but when I do my larger ones, I can't do those by hand. I just can't hold all that ribbon, so this thing is a lifesaver. It holds all the ribbon for me. Okay, so now we're back to the plaid pattern. After this one, we got 2 more of these. Then we can add the bow. I tried to skip a large part of the steps. That would not have looked good. Don't be afraid to really pull on your ribbons. If they're not laying the way you want them to, you can pull on them and twist them and make them do what you want them to do. You've got them secured in there with that pipe cleaner very well, so there should be no worries of it pulling out. Okay, back to the solid red. my ribbon. Three, four. Be careful when you're snipping your pipe cleaners off. Don't cut through your mesh, or you're going to give yourself a bunch of additional fraying that's not necessary. Maybe even end up having to replace that piece of mesh. And especially with the inflation we have going on right now, ribbon prices, mesh prices, that stuff has really increased. So still seems to be a good supply of everything, but at a much higher price. Which is why I shop around and bargain hunt, and you'll hear me say 4 or 5 different places my ribbons came from. Another thing I do, especially for my solid colors or my patterns, my background patterns, is I shop clearance. So after Valentine's Day, after St. Patrick's Day, after Easter, after Christmas especially. So been the last couple days, because I'm getting quite a collection of ribbons now, spent the last couple days trying to find something to use, some type of shelving to organize it all. Because right now I have a 10 by 20 building full of craft and business stuff, an entire room upstairs full of stuff, this office space, as you can see, just overflowing with stuff, and I still have stuff in my bedroom, my living room, my kitchen. So it's taken over the house, so I'm trying to find a way I can organize it all and keep it in the spaces designated for it. Okay, so that's what it looks like when we get all of our pretty watermelons added. Okay, now we're not going to do the sign in the middle this time because, like I said, we're going to add a bow. I think I'm going to order shoe racks for organizing my ribbons. Okay, where do I want to put this? I think I'm going to put it right here. So when you attach your bow, I always wrap my pipe cleaner around, twist in the back. That gives me these 2 tails that I can use. I'm going to use those, and I'm going to work right down in between here to the wire frame underneath and attach the bow. Whoops, I've got my bow turned the wrong way. Make sure you have it facing the way you want it to lay. And after you add it, you're going to want to do some more fluffing and adjustment. And after you add your sign, you'll probably want to do it again. Okay, so I'm coming down through, trying to go around that inner ring on the frame. Okay, I've got it. Now, I'm not going to pull too tight. If I pull this bow too hard, it will sink down in and I will lose all the fluffy fullness of my bow. So I want to kind of just let that float on top of everything else. Give my pipe cleaners a couple good twists. Now, I don't have a lot of extra pipe cleaner here to work with, so I'm not going to cut it off. I'm just going to tuck it up inside so that the sharp ends, because pipe cleaners have wire, so we don't want that sharp end to poke somebody or scratch her door. So I just twisted it I twisted it and twisted and twisted until I got to the very end of the pipe cleaners. I just kept twisting it around and stuff, and then I poked it just up inside the wire here. Okay, and so there is our beautiful bow added. And now, I think I'm going to attach our sign. Well, let's see, I'm going to adjust this because I wanted these tails. I kind of let it move when I was adding it. And I want my tails these watermelon tails coming towards the inside here. So this is what I mean by you'll probably adjust your bow several times. And I want to try to make sure everything's laying nicely. All of my colors and patterns are showing. So we got the red, black and white, red and white. That's looking pretty good. I do the same thing with my bows. I just run my fingers out and get that arch look and curl under the end a little bit. I hope you can see that on camera. So kind of similar to what I do when I'm fluffing out my ribbons all the way around. I kind of do the same thing with my bow. Okay. And I'm gonna bring our watermelon slice, which I've already put the wires in for us. But to do that, I use a metal hole punch that I get from Amazon. I punched a hole on this side and this side. Sometimes I go top to the bottom, but in this case, I was gonna get more security on my wreath if I did each side. Plus it'll be easier to work down to where that wire frame is because it's pretty wide. It's gonna go right over top of that wire frame. Then I use my handy dandy trusty 26 gauge floral wire from the Dollar Tree. For $1.25 you get 100 feet of that. I cut my pieces about 12 to 14 inches long to make it easy for me to work down through all the mesh and ribbon. You can cut them shorter, just harder to work with. So I'm going to pull my bow up here and try to decide. I kind of want to position my sign kind of in the center, but offset with the bow. And I think I'm going to have to turn this towards me to make sure I do this right. Okay. I took that little one under because he's covering up part of my sign. So when you have a ribbon tail that's covering up part of your sign, you can either tuck it underneath or you can trim it off and make it a little bit shorter. Won't hurt anything. Maybe angle it a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'm going to angle it just like that. So now that I have it positioned about where I want it, I'm going to come over here to this piece of wire, work it down to the frame. Again, we're going to wrap this wire around two rings, the two inner rings of our wreath form. Make sure we have it where we want it. That looks about right. So I'm going to go ahead and start twisting the wire underneath. I'll pull it down slightly, but not too hard. I don't want to sink the sign too far. And I'm also leaving a little flexibility on the wire in case I need to make some adjustments when I come over here to attach this side. So if I need to push it over or up, or I can do some adjusting. I'll wrap the wire around itself about 10 or 15 times. Cut off the extra. And then take that piece of wire that's left there and wrap it around that inside ring until you get the sharp pointed end poked up inside so that it's not sticking out. Okay, come over here and make sure this little guy's laying where we want him to. And then do the same thing on this side, all the way down to the frame, around the two inner rings. Readjust again to make sure it's laying the way we want. Now we can mess with this mesh after we get the sign on. If we want to pull some of it out from under our sign to change the way that it lays, or push some more up underneath of it, we can do that to support it. Again, I'm twisting 10 to 15 times. Probably not necessary. I try to say that in every video. It's probably overkill. It doesn't take me long to do this, so I prefer to just have that extra security that my sign's going to stay. Clip off the extra end, and then we're wrapping the piece of wire that's left We're going to wrap it right around this inside ring, just like this, until that sharp end right there is up inside, like that. Now it's smooth, it's not going to scrape me or poke me or whoever may eventually end up using the wreath. Okay, I think that looks rather cute. And that is it for this one, you guys. There's the final result. And of course you could hang it, you could put your bow at the top, you can put it in an angle, I mean you could do all kinds of stuff with this. You could buy you some little watermelon slices and add. You could really do a number of things with it to dress it up. But let me know what you guys think of this one. And then I'll probably be on live again tomorrow, and I'll try to come up with a bow making video to do. So I'll do some new designs, and we'll design some bows to go with those, and I'll do a video on those. If you guys have any questions, make sure you just leave me a comment or send me a message. And thank you so much again for watching and for helping me out. I really do appreciate it. You guys have a good night.